Do you have any friends or friendships that are just based off of nostalgia?
You know my homie, no, you know my homie, you do not know.
You caught me chewing, but people from very early on, I guess, like when we had childhood experiences together, it's like all we talk about whenever we talk or whenever we meet, you know? And I think you and I are an example of friends who had those childhood experiences but kind of moved past it because we found things in common in our current lives that also like drive a relationship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But there are people who kind of, I don't know, their value to me is nostalgic, right? Even people that I don't really like. This applies to family members too, or like
What?
not like direct family, but like
like cousins,
extended
yeah.
family, cousins, or like aunts or uncles or whatever. You know what I mean? So yeah, I find it's pretty common, but I try not to have those friendships because they feel kind of empty,
Yeah.
right? If you're always looking back on like, if the first thing if you say, or if like one of the first things you say to someone when you meet is just like, oh, remember that one time where we did this, like, I don't know,
Like laughing about the good times.
yeah, it's like, oh, is there no good times or value now that you guys can relate over or that you guys can connect over? So yeah, I think it's sort of, I don't know, it's sort of like it's like a signal that your current friendship is lacking in value.
So how do those interactions go then? Is it just the whole time you just talk about nostalgia, or do you even consider those friendships still?
That's a good question. I think usually friendships without nostalgia that have that level, like surface level kind of discussion as being like the main talking point. Those people in my lives are acquaintances. You know?
Yeah.
And so the only thing that's kind of edging them over the border of friendship is the fact that we have history together, you know? And so a lot of the conversations that happen are small talk. And it's like,
Well, how are you?
yeah, how
How
are
you been? What you been up to?
How are the kids, you know?
How are the
Shit
kids?
like that. Yeah, I don't know, man. Just but yeah, it's like stuff like that. And then very rarely very rarely is it natural to bring up what's currently going on in our lives,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Because
Also,
it's hard to
yeah, exactly.
talk about, right?
And if you think about it, like people whose main connection to you is nostalgia, like you're not going to be seeing them often anyways, right?
Yeah.
And so most of what you're doing is like trying to find like a common ground to make conversation over, which just happens to be what both of us are nostalgic about. You know what I mean? And so I think like a good reason of why you and I are still friends and like are like good friends is because even though we had those, you know, like I remember when we did that shit, you know, like we've hung out enough and often enough to like share experiences in our current state.
So then, do you think you have an obligation to these friendships where you had a lot of good times before, but clearly now there's not much of a connection anymore? Do you feel obligated to be like, oh, I haven't seen you in a while, let's catch up? And what's the value of those friendships compared to the ones now, where it's not based off of nostalgia, and nostalgia isn't the one that's carrying the friendship?
That's a good question. Yeah, I would argue that there's less value than most people. Like, I think this is like an uncommon opinion, but like friendships that rely on nostalgia as its main like driving force won't last. You know, you'll run out of things to laugh about. If you don't,
And you can't laugh about the same things over and over again.
Exactly,
Yeah?
you can't laugh about the same things over and over again. And so, like those friendships, they don't mean as much to me as the friendships that I currently hold, because I like to think of myself as like a person who wants to cherish and live in the present as much as possible, at least nowadays. And I get more value out of people sharing these experiences with me currently or like even if we're nostalgic about things that happened recently, you know, that happens too, right? Nostalgia isn't just like gated for like childhood memories or anything like that. But if the shared experiences that we had were so far long ago, it's hard to say how much I've changed since then, how much those values or how much those experiences are valued to me currently.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So even if those people or those friendships that are based on nostalgia, even if they are the OGs, do you think the title of being an OG still has some weight to it? I'm sure it does, yeah? You'd be like, you know, I spent this bit of time with this person and I cherish those memories and moments. So
Yeah.
I'm
I think
sure-
they hold a special place.
Yeah.
For sure.
But do you think that they're just a memory that you're fond of, or it can be something that's
I think that's greater than just friends over nostalgia though, because if they were the OGs, like they're like formative people in my life, you know what I mean?
yeah.
When I refer to people like who like are connected to me purely through nostalgia, I'm not thinking of like the OGs. I'm thinking of like
Is that
people
not what OGs have though? They have that nostalgic element towards them, yeah?
That's true, but like if they're the OGs, I value them more than just the nostalgia that they bring.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they were OGs for a reason. Like if someone is formative in my life, then I feel like I would be willing to keep them in my life as much as possible. You know,
Because they hold that title of
because
OG.
they hold that title. Yeah, exactly. If they're OGs, they're gonna be OGs for life. Like I'm gonna be trying my best to be friends with them as long as possible.
But you could still be an OG, and once you start talking again, it could turn out that all you talk about is nostalgia. That's what I'm trying to get at, you feel me? Because an OG is just someone who was there at the beginning.
Yeah.
You feel me?
In that case, I think the OGs hold a good special place in my heart.
But they're not necessarily a friend currently. They don't necessarily
Yeah.
have to be a friend currently.
I think they keep the title of friend,
Yeah.
but
Like, would you still consider an OG a friend, even though
you haven't
it
talked
just
in a
carried,
long,
yeah,
long, long
you
time.
know, just based off nostalgia.
Hmm. I think they'd be considered a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then, you hang out with your friends, no? Would you hang out with this OG, even though all you talk about is nostalgia? Like,
Well, if we've hung out before and we've only talked about nostalgia every single time, then it feels off. You know, because if our connection is nostalgia and I want to connect with you more, we're not going to just be talking about nostalgia. I'm going to want to know more about you currently as well. You know what I mean? So if I had like an OG friend who was with me since the beginning, then at some point all we start talking about is the past. It's not beneficial for me or for them to keep talking about the past over and over again, right? That just shows me that they don't really want to know me now. And if I don't make the effort to know them now, then we're not going to get past that stage, or just past that level of friendship where it's just like reminiscing about the past to know it, you know?
so the title of OG only really holds weight if you're still communicative
Yeah,
till this day.
absolutely. Or not even, it doesn't even need to be like consistent communication. I have friends that are from my childhood or from like formative parts of my life that I haven't talked to in a couple years, and if they hit me up now and we hung out, I would like to hang out with them because
Well-
I want to get to know more about what happened in their lives currently, right?
Well, why do you not hang out with them more frequently then?
Well, sometimes we're just at different parts of our lives.
Yeah.
Like I have friends who are super focused on like self-improvement currently, right? And they're really focusing on their own shit. And it just happens that our lives are not really like moving along in the same line, and they're like off doing their own thing, you know? And the fact that they're doing their own thing and I'm doing my own thing, and it just happens that we don't like cross paths or whatever, that's probably
For the best.
No, not for the best, but like that's probably like the reason as to why we don't talk as often, right? But that doesn't mean that I don't value them any less, you know.
So like, let's say there's a friend and you don't talk at all, but every year you kind of make plans to just meet up and catch up. Is that still a friend, you think?
Depends on what we do when we catch up.
You just catch up. You meet up, eat, catch up. It's almost like an obligation, you know? Like, it's Christmas this year. So it's an occasion to do something, which is to celebrate Christmas. In this case, it's to catch up. Kind of like a chore almost, you feel me?
Well, it's only a chore if I'm not looking forward to it, right?
Yeah. But
It's only a chore if like
you
after...
feel obligated because they're an OG. That's what I'm saying.
Well, the way I'm hearing it is like, if I feel obligated in the first place, then I'm already looking towards like them not being a friend and them more being like,
Yeah, it's like,
someone that I
getting the
must
shit over
meet,
with,
yeah.
you feel me?
Yeah, it's like relatives that you're not close to. It's getting to that point, right?
So at that point, you just cut it off then? You're like, you know what? Yes, we were friends before, but clearly we're not talking right now, right? So then you just cut it off. You're like, it was nice meeting you. It was nice knowing you. This is where it ends. Kind of like breaking
I
up.
think,
Or do you continue to meet? Or a third option, you just ghost them, which is kind of shitty.
I think if I like weighed the pros and cons of cutting them off over just meeting them every year, I think I would just choose to meet them once every year, honestly.
Even though it feels like an obligation?
Yeah. Because they're a person too, right? Like, I don't want, even though, like, I'm not losing that much if I hang out with them once every year
Yeah.
and catch up with them. It just gives me another person to talk to, right? And like,
Even if it's just nostalgia.
yeah. I mean, but they'll never be like my best friend.
Yeah.
They'll never be like
What they were before.
what they were before, or like if we were talking, if all we do is catch up, like if that's all we're gonna do, then you're just gonna be a friend who I catch up with every once in a while, and like the friendship will move past that. You know, we're not gonna be best friends. We're not gonna be talking every day of the year. We're not gonna be hanging out in person. You know, like by it being an obligation and it occurring once every year, it's like it's bound to stay stagnant like that.
Is that its own type of friendship? Like, is that a legitimate friendship? You'd say.
Well, yes, if I care for them like a friend, then it is. Yeah.
Fair.
But it's just not, it's not what it could be,
Yeah.
if that's the case, right?
Let's end it off.
Okay.
We'll end it off on a good note.
Sure.
So like something lighthearted. What's the best compliment you've ever received?
One of my friends was just like, your skin's looking good today. And I've struggled with good skin. I've struggled with bad skin. Like my whole fucking life. Like literally every time I look in the mirror, I have a red patch, fucking eczema, or like I'm getting itchy or some shit, dry patch.
The neighbors are moving in.
Yeah, fucking like everything's just on my face all the time. And my friend was just like, hey, your skin's looking good. I can tell you're taking care of it. And like, it's not that she's like, oh, it's looking good. Like she can tell that I put the effort in.
Yeah, she said, I can tell you've been taking care of it. To recognize
that's
what
the
you've been doing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like recognizing my efforts. Because I think like, even though it feels so routine to me, this shit's like, it's strenuous work.
Yeah.
It's like, I have to always be conscious, always be checking whether or not I'm dry. I need to be watching what I eat, watching like where I am. If I'm in the sun for too long, my skin will break out. If I'm in the cold for too long, my skin will break out. If I go from hot to cold too fast, my hands get itchy. Like if I sleep in a bed that isn't mine, I'll get itchy. Like, and I don't know. It's like there's so much shit that I need to think about that takes work to get around, right?
Yeah.
And like, it's clear when I don't do that work too.
It's apparent. You can
it's
see
apparent.
it.
Anyone can see it. You know, if I have bad skin, people would be like, "Yo, you ain't be taking care of yourself right now." And I'm like, "Thanks, man. I know." Like, you need to tell me. But then, like, when I have those days of good skin, it's just like those days, like the work that precedes that one good day of skin is like 4 or 5 days of like,
Yeah.
you're on top of things, and that's just like a sign that I'm like doing good, right? So it feels good when someone's just like, "Man, your skin's looking good," like. No red patches, no dry patches. You're doing everything. It looks good, right? And yeah, I think that's probably the most impactful
That's
thing
fire.
that I've heard recently.
That's a confidence booster, I'm sure.
It is. If someone said that to me, at first I'm just like, nah, you're fucking capping, you know? It never happened. Like even today, like I'm a little red here,
Yeah.
like you know what I mean? Like got issues, bro. But some days I don't have those issues, and sometimes people notice, and it's nice. Yeah, yeah. That's one that I can think of.
That's fire.
Thank you.
You got issues.